Hey guys, my name is Zoe.
And my name is Grace.
And today we're gonna be teaching you guys part 1 of Unit 1 of AP Biology as summer is starting, so you guys can get a good hang of it before the school year starts, and so you won't be as stressed as we were when we first took the course.
So you won't be cooked for the APs.
Our credentials
Are that we got
5s and A's in the course.
Yeah.
So follow along and this will be great.
Yeah. And also, my credential is that I had no clue going into bio.
And I taught her all of bio.
So yeah.
So
You're
we'll
getting
be
the POV from a dumb kid like me. Okay, it's okay.
Okay, that's fine. Today we're going to be focusing on, as I said, part 1 of Unit 1, which entails the basic chemistry that you need to know for this course. And Grace will start talking about very basic chemistry that you guys need to know for this course.
Yes. So the smallest level of organization for what you need to know for bio is an atom. And so in an atom, there are 3 subatomic particles: the proton, the electron, and the neutron. So first, the anatomy of an atom. We have the nucleus, and then around it is electron shells where the electrons reside. And in the nucleus, there is the neutron and the proton. And the proton has a +1 charge. You can remember it as pro, which is good, bueno. And then also it has a +1 AMU. So AMU is like, it's a unit for mass.
Atomic mass unit. That's the abbreviation for it. It's not like a gram or something. It's just like, it's its own thing.
Yeah, so it's 1 AMU. And then also in the nucleus is a neutron. Neutron has a 0 charge, which you can remember by neutron as in neutral. And it also has a +1 AMU. And around the nucleus are the electron shells. And a common misconception is that like there's just like distinct shells of electrons. And it's more of like area of where like electrons can be, but there isn't like an actual like shell in which the electrons are.
A lot of people call it like an electron cloud, where electrons, it's possible for you to find electrons. There's like a probability of it existing there.
Yeah. So I don't think for bio you need to know too much into like the suborbitals and like
you don't
like
need
that,
to know,
but yeah.
Like biology is very surface level chemistry, and so it's quite simplified. If you guys are interested, like it's all over the internet, or if you're taking AP chemistry, that's what you'll learn more about.
Yeah, and so electrons also have a -1 charge, and since it's super small, like the subatomic particle, in this course we're just going to neglect the mass, so we're just going to say it's no mass. But in reality, there is a mass, but it's just not relevant in this case. Next is the how to read a basic element on the periodic table. So this is like a basic, I guess, photo of what you would see as like a little block on the element of the periodic table of elements. On the top, you would see the atomic number, and then in the middle, you would often find the symbol. Each periodic table is different, so you would not necessarily find the element name on every single one of them. And then the atomic mass is also listed below the symbol. And so the atomic mass is composed of both the mass of the neutron and the proton. So it would usually be like twice the number of the atomic number, but that can change as I elaborate later. But it's important to know that the atomic number determines the identity of the element. So carbon can only have 6 protons. If it's 7 protons or 5 protons, then it's not carbon and it's a different element. But however, a single element can have a varied number of neutrons, and that'll be isotopes. And I don't think you know too much about isotopes.
You do.
You do? Mm-hmm. In radio.
In radiotherapy, uses of isotopes and why they are the way.
Yeah. So, but yeah.
Quick fun fact. So, you know how the atomic mass is supposed to be like the mass of all protons and the mass of all neutrons? The reason why it's not a flat number is because it's relative to the amount of isotopes that there are. So, for example, if we have carbon like 12 versus carbon 14, like carbon 12 resides more than carbon 14, right? So there's less. It's closer to the atomic atomic mass number of 12 instead of 14.
Yeah.
That's just some like fun things that you'll learn.
Yeah.
But talk about the uses of
Uses. So it's used a lot in medicine, and especially like determining like decay of things. So isotopes usually have like half-lives in which scientists can measure like how much decay a substance has gone through over a period of time, and that can be used in imaging, right?
Yeah.
Imaging.
Like if you're looking at like a PET scan or anything like that, specifically the ones where like you're measuring activity, the radioactive decay or like the decay and the half-life will show up, and places that it's more used, like that's how they look at like PET images, I think. And the glowing parts is where most of the things, more energy is being used.
Yeah. Okay. Next, this is important.
This is very important.
Okay.
The history is a good thing
History,
to know, because
yeah.
sometimes they test you
But yeah.
on the history,
history.
in school.
Yeah. Okay, so first we're gonna dive pretty deep into carbon. And carbon is really, really, really important because has important properties that contribute to life.
Very important.
Very important. And so an entire like unit of chemistry is dedicated to the study of carbon, which
it's not even a unit, it's just like a field,
like
in
a field
chemistry.
of chemistry. So that's organic chemistry, or often abbreviated as orgo. And so it's just a study of organic compounds or anything that has carbon in it or has anything to do with carbon in it. So carbon, in a nutshell, is that carbon is very important and it has a lot of qualities.
I think we just repeated ourselves.
Might be. And which that gives rise to a lot of more like complex molecules and compounds that involve carbon. So things like DNA, proteins, lipids, carbs. Basically
everything found in life.
Yeah, everything has carbon in it. Whether in like, yeah.
Your nucleic acids, your proteins, your carbs. Like in your proteins, you have a central carbon. In your carbs, it's made like your sugar rings are all like carbon rings. Yeah.
And then of course DNA, like the carbon is on the backbone of the DNA as well, so that's very important. And then also other elements that you should probably know are carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and sulfur. And so my teacher said it as schnapps. And it was really annoying.
Schnapp.
It's very annoying, so I remember it. Schnapps. And so these elements usually like combine and make bonds with carbon to make other molecules. But these are elements that you would find in life. And then next is the basic history of organic and inorganic chemistry. So this is Guy. His name is Berzelius. And he decided to give it a name because he wanted to be a big buff scientist that had credit with a name for something.
That's Berzelius.
Yeah.
Right here.
And then so he helped define the term organic, and he believed that organic compounds at the time could only come from living things. And so he believed that organic meant there was life and inorganic meant there was basically no life. And then so the theory and the idea at that time was vitalism, in which people believed that like life or living things had like a special force that like made them, I guess, better, and things that like non-living things didn't. And so that eventually was debunked and taken out of the picture by this guy named Stanley Miller at the University of Chicago, where he ran the Miller-Urey experiment, as you just might know it by name, where they basically replicated like early life conditions on Earth, and they found out that molecules and compounds form spontaneously and not with the presence of life, because early Earth didn't really have life. So then
early Earth was diabolical. It was like lots of fire, lots of extreme conditions. I don't think any life was gonna survive.
I certainly wasn't. I'm very low survival instincts.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, but then that experiment debunked the fact that life came from other life, but it was more of how atoms interacted with each other that then created life as we know it now.
And now, so how do molecules or how do atoms come together to form bigger molecules? This idea is called chemical bonding. Let's use our favorite example, carbon. It's been pretty prevalent throughout this entire slide deck. For example, carbon has 6 electrons, but there's only 4 electrons in its quote-unquote valence shell, which is the most outside electrons, and these are the electrons that will participate in chemical bonding with another atom. And so the idea is that all of the elements or all of the atoms want to have a complete valence shell. And the number to complete the valence shell depends on whichever is the outermost shell. But you guys probably don't need to know the exact formulas or the exact ways to do this. So we'll just talk about very basically what are some types of chemical bonding. The most well-known, the biggest 2 types, the biggest 2 names in this industry, in the bonding industry, is the covalent bond and the ionic bond. So we have them put here. So basically what a covalent bond is, in the most basic words possible, is electron sharing. So for example, if I had 3 apples, but I wanted 8 apples, no. How do I say this? If I have 5 apples and I wanted 6 apples to complete my shell. This doesn't exist, right? To complete my collection, I can ask Grace, who also has 5 apples, to share one of her apples with me, and I'll share one of my apples with her, and then therefore we have a complete collection of apples, both of us.
We have 12 apples in total.
Exactly. 6 plus 6, 5 plus 5 is 10, right? But if I get one from you and we share that one, and I share one of mine with you, we each have 6.
We're in possession of 6.
Yes. But the thing is, if I were greedy and I try to keep Grace's apple with me more than my apple goes to her, it's called a polar covalent bond, because the extra electron spends more time with me. The extra apple spends more time with me than it does with Grace. And so this is what causes polar bonds to form. And in this case, the pole isn't because of greed, it's because of electronegativity, or how much an atom wants an electron.
So it is greed.
Technically.
If you're greedy, then you want more.
Yeah. So you can think of it like that. Yeah. On the other hand, you have an ionic bond, and this bond is more extreme.
She's
than
very
the covalent bond, because you're actively actually it's not that bad, but you're stealing the apple from Grace completely. And once you steal that apple, you have this plus and minus charge. So I'm positive in apples and she's negative in apples. So she'll want to flock to me to get her apple back. So that's how you can understand an ionic bond. It's because of charge differences. I have more electronegative. Usually these are across the periodic table, right? For example, NaCl. They'll take an electron, and on the Cl will take an electron, right? And Na has a slight positive, Cl has a slight negative, and therefore opposites attract, boom, boom, boom. You have a salt bond. And this isn't that strong because it's not connection, it's more merely attraction, if that makes sense. Next, we have the spares. These are the lesser known but also very important bonding or interactions that you'll need to know. First, your van der Waals interactions. So these are basically, you know how electrons are organized in quote-unquote shells, but they're not really. It's actually in a cloud. Well, that cloud, electrons can exist in multiple parts of the cloud at the same time or at different times, right? And so how do I say this? For example, by chance, if all of the electrons were pushed to one side of the electron cloud and another atom had all of their electrons pushed to the other side, the proton, you can see it in this picture pretty clearly right here, the proton will attract the electrons, and therefore it will form a slight connection. And basically what happens is this allows for very weak interactions between these atoms, and hence geckos or spiders and insects can walk on walls, whereas we can't because we're too big. But yeah, hydrogen bonding is another thing, and that will have like a whole part all to itself. It's actually chapter 3 of campus biology. We'll talk about this next in our next video, because the next video will be all about water, agua. But yeah, this is it. You guys learned your first like little bits of AP biology. Thank you guys for watching.
Yeah, we hope it wasn't too bad.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Okay, bye.